Hi Crafty Friend, it's Justine Dvorak from Stationery by Justine, where when I craft my world stands still. Today I accidentally made a giant mistake and I ended up with two separate cards, both beach themed because as you saw on the graphic, it is beach week, woohoo, here at Pajama Crafter Stamps. So we're going to celebrate with a card. And like I said, I made a huge mistake and I'm going to end up with two separate cards. So in this video, you're going to see me do some masking with stamping, watercoloring, and then some very tricky, if you will, stretching of some scrap card stock that I just could not get rid of. So stay tuned. I'm starting here with a piece of some watercolor paper, and I will be cutting this down multiple times in the video. So just know it's going to get smaller as I go. Like I said, I'm going to make a huge mistake. So you're going to have to stay tuned for that. But I will put the final measurements in the description for that watercolor card because I do not remember it offhand. I'm going to start with this really cute sign that is from Pajama Crafter Stamps. I'm using two different stamp sets. One is called Beach Huts and one is called See You Soon. I'm also going to use this fantastic girl up at the top. She is called Flower Child. I have stamped this on to watercolor paper using black VersaFine ink. Now I'm going to take some clear embossing powder and just get that all over the black ink. Tap off the extras and then grab my heat tool. I like to warm up my heat tool a little bit. If you use a heat tool, be careful. It is hot and it gets hotter, so be careful. Next, I'm going to go ahead and melt that. Anytime I want my image to have black ink, I always use black ink with clear embossing powder. Black embossing powder is like, if I had a crafty enemy, black embossing powder would probably be my crafty enemy. It never, ever is clean and tidy and it never looks right. So unless you're going to do mixed media, not for me. Here I am chopping this down again. I'm telling you, this paper is going to shrink and shrink and shrink some more, but it's all good. All right, I'm going to stick that down again. And now I do have a mask that I have all done already because I've used this stamp set multiple times before. But let's pretend you do not have one. And I'm going to tell you what you can do. So from Pajama Crafter Stamps, they have, wow, that was a really fast, I just showed you real quick. But they have a masking product where it is like a low tack and you just stamp on it just like I did here. I'm just going to do the top of the bird head here because I'm just going to give you a flavor of it since I already have my mask out. But you just take your scissors and you can go ahead and fussy cut it. If you are not a fussy cutter, it's okay. Don't leave the video. What you can do is use your scan and cut and it will actually cut out the mask for you as well. Love that for you. And me. I've definitely done that before. Then you just take off the backing like so. And then you stick it on. So it's low tack, nice and easy, right? So there we go. I do save my masking pieces on the back of the acetate in my stamp set. That way I can always go back and use it again. You can see here I've actually used this masking paper for ink blending in the past, and it's going to work perfectly for my card now. Next, I'm going to take another couple pieces or another stamps from the other set, which is the See You Soon. And this is such a pretty stamp. Oh my, the things people have done with this stamp is just so beautiful. So what I'm going to do is have water and then this ground little pathway. The pathway is going to go on the bottom and the water is going to go in the background. And we're going to make like a beachy, watery scene. So if you're not like me, maybe you're like me, but you probably should put this in a Misty. I'm just going to say, because if you have dry ink pads, you're going to need to stamp this out twice for good a good impression, but I just re-inked both of my ink pads. So I am just using an ink block here. Now for the ground and such, I am going to use my black VersaFine again, but for the water, we're going to use clear because I want it to look like water and like, you know, clear water. So that made sense to my brain. I moved that over just so I could get my head over this so I could get it somewhat centered. And I am going to use my little froggy press. Hello. Just to press it on. I don't recommend doing that for most stamps, but it felt right in the moment because I wanted to make sure the middle was all pressed nicely. But again, use a MISTI. I'm telling you, you're going to get a better stamp than just using a block and, you know, like a hope and a prayer. Okay, next for the water, I'm going to go ahead and use that clear embossing powder again with clear embossing ink. So it's going to be very clear. And then the watercolor that I'm going to pull out is going to just make the stamp just be so pretty. So pretty, you guys. I'm going to do some more with embossing and some of the Pajama Crafter stamps later this month on the channel. So excuse my like clearing my throat. I am dealing with allergies. I'm so sorry, but the show must go on. We're all humans here. Or hello aliens or mermaids if you're watching. It's fine. No, but like I said, more videos are coming, and with Beach Week comes lots of inspiration. So be sure to subscribe to the Pajama Crafter Stamps YouTube channel and to the Pajama Crafter Stamps blog. Check that out as well. There's just lots of fun inspiration up there for you. Okay, that clear embossing powder has now stuck to the water area and the ground. And I know someone out there is going, what? You already stamped the sign and you already heat embossed the sign. And yes, the heat gun might melt that again a little bit, but it's really not a big deal, okay? So it might melt a little, but it's fine. The point is I wanted it masked before, and to put that masking sheet over that, it needed to be heat set. So it's all fine, right? Okay, now that everything has been stamped and heat impressed with some embossing powder, I have these metallic watercolors. I actually got them from Joy as a gift. Joy is the owner of Pajama Crafter Stamps, if you didn't know. And I really like these metallic watercolors. So when I watercolor, I really just like drowned the project. I use a glass board for my work surface. I wet the bottom, I wet the back of the paper, I wet the front of the paper. I spray my watercolors. I call it waking my watercolors up. And I also spray my surface. So this is going to look like I had a bunch of caffeine because this painting process is sped up quite a bit. So no, I am not like a crazy lady who paints like really fast, but I do like to take my time with watercoloring, and I did not think you wanted a 5-hour long video. Not that this took me 5 hours, but it was quite a lot of time. And now for watercoloring, I always like to have a little either paper towel, or I usually just have microfiber rags in my craft room that I just keep just to soak up any extra water, and it gives me a chance to change my brushes. Now, like I said, I do love this watercolor set, but there is no brown. So let me teach you how to make brown. I want it to have a gold undertone, so I'm going to start with some yellow and gold. Then yellow and gold with blue makes green. Now green and red, opposite of the colors wheel, are their complementary colors. If you mix them together, you're going to get mud, which is brown. Ta-da! There's brown. Ta-da! Yikes. Okay, another way to get brown is to go opposite. So you could do blue and orange. You could do purple and yellow. You're going to get brown. Anything that is opposite of the color wheel, you're going to get mud if you mix them together. So that will just be painted just ever so gently onto the sign and lightly on the pathway. I'm keeping everything on this very, very wet. So this is a very wet on wet watercolor situation. And I just wanted the sign just a little darker. So I added a little bit of that like sapphire-y blue color and made it darker because brown is kind of like orangish, right? And orange and yellow. So blue is opposite of the color wheel of the yellow and blue and orange. So that works out very nicely. Okay, I'm just gonna wipe up my surface. I do like to use these little trays for drying my projects, but sometimes the inspiration strikes and you don't want to wait. So I'm gonna take my microfiber rag and just kind of zhuzh up the sky. This is where I can get into a lot of trouble when I am watercoloring. I can sit here and putz with this for way too long, and I make mistakes that way. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and just stop. Stop right there and call it good. There's a huge puddle, but I'm just gonna just wipe it away and be gentle doing that because you can see a lot of the water just puddled up on the top of my project, but it's okay. Now I am impatient and I want to film this video today, not in 2 days. So I am using my heat tool to dry this on the very lowest setting. As I do this, I'm just moving this around. Again, it's on the very lowest setting, so hopefully it's not drying and taking up any of the heat embossing. As I do this, I wipe down the surface just to make sure everything is nice and dry. Now, I want to have a background for this, so I grabbed a piece of pattern paper from Pajama Crafter Stamps. This is like the ocean stripes with these little like ropes all over. I love this pattern paper pack. I will link it down below. Unfortunately, I'm going to flip this paper over and use the really pretty blue on the other side, which is so pretty, but I love this pattern as well. But you know, in those paper packs, she gives you multiple sheets, so there's chances to use them other ways. Watch me cut this panel down for the third time in this video. And I don't know, to me, it needed to be a little smaller. And I just kept chopping it, thinking, oh, my little gal is going to be on the beach, like she's walking on the beach. And it just didn't look right, you guys. So what am I going to do? We're going to cut it again because that made sense in my brain at the time. And I thought, you know, we'll just mat some white behind this and then put the girl on. But she's so cute. I love her, but she's covering up too much beach. So what's a crafter to do? Well, oops, I cut down my paper too much, and oops, I probably should have made a 5x7 card to start with. So oops, we're going to make 2 cards and it's going to be fine. All right, well, what I'm going to do is grab some of the white marshmallow cardstock from Pajama Crafter Stamps. Clean up my little birdie here for a second. He got a little bit of that blue sky on him, but adding water and wiping it away fixed that problem. But this white paper from Pajama Crafter Stamps is like a very beautiful, bright, like pretty white is what I would call it. It's a true white. And so it works really well for Copic coloring, I found, and I like to just have it for all of the things that I use in the craft room. So I'm using it as a matting layer here and just eyeballing it and giving it a little skinny border. So not too particular, just a little something on there. And that was crooked, of course, so we're going to chop it again, and we'll do it on the top as well. And this just kind of breaks up the scene from that really pretty blue, and I just love how it frames it. At this point, I realized, oh no, the flowers, I forgot. I was going to color them in, and I thought I'll wait because if I added the color when the grass was wet, then it would mix. And so I will go back and color in those flowers very soon here. But I do have a little bit of a moment with the pattern paper going, wait, I really like this pattern paper. I can't lose it. So making all sorts of mistakes, because really I also should have done this, which is add these beautiful seagulls in the background. When I'm telling you this scene really builds itself from this stamp set, I'm not joking. It's just so pretty. Look at those birds. Again, if you're not working with a good inked up stamp pad, and if you don't have a steady hand and confidence of a 2.5-year-old with a tutu, use a Misty. But I unfortunately, I'm that person. I'm good. Okay, here I am adding a little bit of color to the flowers. Oh, that just made them come to life. And that was kind of risky to do because I've already glued it onto my project. But I said, you know, what's life without a little bit of risk? Don't you just like want to walk down that path? I want to walk down this path. I really love this stamp set, and I haven't pulled this one out since last fall. So I'm so ready for summer looking at this card. All right, now here we go. That card we're going to call good. I'm not going to add a sentiment to the front of it because I think it is just sweet as it is. And that metallic watercolor is so beautiful. Oh, okay. Now for my second card, you can see that really cool pattern paper pack up top. Yep. It's so cool. Now, I have scraps from that pattern paper pack that I have been hoarding. Hi, I'm a paper hoarder. And so I don't want to cut into a whole new sheet of paper when I have great scraps. So I had a 3x3 square, roughly. We're just going to say about 3x3. And so I cut it about 1x1 or 1-inch strips and made this little, like a cut apart trio, right? And that just stretches my pattern paper. So I needed it to cover a bigger area, but the paper was too small to begin with. So I cut it apart into thirds so it looks intentional, which, I mean, it was intentional. I chose to do that. And then I am going to pull them apart and have 3 different panels. And then for this bottom, I thought about doing it the same with these, but I ended up just using one of those little strips and cutting basically into 1-inch little cubes. And for this is going to be my little like panel that I'm going to work with. So I've got these strips, and you can see I kind of played around with how I wanted them to go, but I did want to keep the pattern consistent going across. So here I go, chopping off these little pieces by 1x1 pieces. Merp, that did not fit, did it? But if I scooch those up and cut these apart, we'll be all set. Isn't that pattern paper just so gorgeous? It's got those light blue beachy colors. It's got the like warm coral, which I think is so just, if you love orange, this is a good one. I'm not the biggest orange fan, but I don't know why. I feel like orange and yellow have been like coming into my crafting a lot more often, which I'm not mad about. Okay, you guys, bear with me. I thought about doing this. It looked goofy. In my head, I thought, what would happen if I did that? And so there you have it. I've got my little background for her. I mean, look at this paper. It's just so pretty. And then the back, it looks like a linen piece of paper. I'm spoiled for choice here with the paper is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to go ahead and use this one though, which is kind of like a shiplap with like these blue outlined shells. They're very pretty. And I think that will be a lovely little background. Again, I am so sorry about my throat. It's just my life. Okay. And so here we go. I've got some of the pebbled beach cardstock from Pajama Crafter Stamps. I love this one. If you get a chance to look carefully at the paper itself, it has these little pieces of like fibers almost in there. So it's not just like a tan piece of paper that is one solid color. It has all of these little bits and bobs in there, and it pulls different colors. So if the blue is next to it, it kind of like pulls blue. If it has greens or reds, it pulls to the color that is around it, and it's going to look so nice with the blue and the orange tones that are in the pattern paper, and also that green that's on the shirt of my little gal and on her eyes. I know this girl stamp was so popular. She's called Flower Child. It's sold out already on Pajama Crafter Stamps. I'm sure by the time this video goes up, it will be back in stock, but people have been discovering Pajama Crafter Stamps like left and right, and yeah, if you haven't checked them out, I don't know what you're waiting for. I've got affiliate links down below. Happy shopping, and then happy crafting, because you're going to have fun. I'm just going to zhuzh the edge of this cardstock up just a little bit with a blending buddy that I've got in my craft room. Whatever was left on the brush is what went on my project. I didn't add any ink. It just remained. And that is like my favorite way to add to these edges, because it doesn't have to be this like, pull out the ink. Oh, it's just use what you got, It's on the desk. We're using it. So we're using it. All right, I've got my glue, and we're going to glue these panels down. And again, I'm going to try to keep in mind that I want to keep my pattern looking consistent. So I have this, and I'm going to start in the corner, which I go back and forth. Sometimes with projects like this, I'll start in the corner and like work my way from left to right. Sometimes I'll start in the middle and work my way all the way to the left, and then go back to the middle, work my way all the way to the right. And that's just depending on the project. I change it up a little bit. Sometimes if I'm using word dies, I'll start with, like let's say it's a 5-letter word. I'll do letter 3 first, and then letter 2 and 4, and then do number 1 and 5. So it's just using what I want to glue down and making sure that there's enough space for everything. And because I'm eyeballing everything and just leaving white space here and there, I just had to be a little bit particular about how I put these pieces on, and I didn't just start randomly gluing them on. Again, I want to stretch the pattern paper, so I'm just cut it apart. Now I'm going to use some Distress Oxide spray for splatter, and I do that off camera. I don't spray anything. I also added a sparkle effect from Spellbinders as well. I just love adding a little extra splat and stuff to projects. I think it just adds a little texture. Speaking of texture, these corner edges are just so exciting. I think that they make them so fancy. They also are sold on the website for Pajama Crafter Stamps as well. They are sold in a pack with black and like a craft color, which is like a brown, and then a white. I don't know why, but I reach for the white ones like it's my job. And I've been adding them to projects recently. So I'm just going to stick this right onto the cardstock. Those little corners are pre-sticky, so I didn't need to add any glue behind them, but I did want to add glue to the panel itself. Because I splattered, I'm grabbing a piece of acetate and just pressing everything down, just so my hand does not move any of the splattered areas. Next, I'm going to add that panel onto my patterned paper panel that I ink blended on, and then that will go onto the next layer. So we've got a lot of layers going on this project. We've got the pattern paper, the white marshmallow, the sandy beach or pebbled beach, and then the pretty blue pattern paper. Look how fun those lobsters are on the other pattern paper there. I don't know. Beach stuff is just really fun. Now, if you like underwater and more beach things, Pajama Crafter Stamps has many stamps that fit the brief for that. They've got Happy Flappy, which is like a shark one. They've got a stamp set for, I think it's called What the Krill, and Mother Puffer with this really fun puffer fish. They've just got a lot of fun, like watery stuff. So now I've added this onto a white card base. Pajama Crafter Stamps also sells white card bases, so you can do all of your shop in there if you really want to. There's also Barely Art liquid glue that they sell there, so you could shop till you drop there. I did shop my stash for the embellishments for this card. I had some little starfish and shells that I just had hoarded in my craft room. You can see them off to the side there. So I'm just going to glue those on as well. Now, Pajama Crafter Stamps does carry these banner dies, which I use the medium size one, and stamped out with my Rusty Hinge Distress Oxide. See you soon, which I love a pun. You know I love a pun. And that Rusty Hinge matches my splatter, so that made my heart happy. I don't love the placement of my banner. I wish I would have used the biggest one. There's a small, medium, and large banner dies, and I wish I would have used the biggest one and then moved it more toward the left. You might see what I'm saying when I finish the project, but regardless, I do think that the project turned out super cute anyway, but I just wish I would have moved it over, like, I don't know, I just wish that banner was longer, but chance for another card for another day. But that's how we learn, is to try, make mistakes, and try again, because if I wouldn't have made the mistake of chopping down that watercolor panel multiple times and ending up with too small of a background for my lovely little lady here, I wouldn't have this card. Now, you might be wondering, well, how did you color her? I don't have that on camera. I like to color off camera usually in my living room when I'm hanging out with my husband. But the owner of Pajama Crafter Stamps, Joy, did a live video where she colored this flower child 3 different ways. So you can definitely learn so much from Joy's lives. If you have not watched and listened to any of her coloring tips, you have got to go ahead and check those out under the live tab on the Pajama Crafter Stamps YouTube channel. She gives out so much, like so much free knowledge about Copic coloring, or really just alcohol marker coloring. It doesn't even have to be Copics. You can apply it for multiple different brands. The idea of it is the same. Now, her really cute bun here covered up one of my photo corners, which I was sad about. So I am just going to add 2 more of those corners just to finish up those 2 other corners. So here is a finished look at my card. I hope you've loved watching me create my 2 cards. It was a mistake, but it was a happy mistake, right? A happy accident, if you will. So if you have liked or learned anything from today's video, please go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more crafty fun. We will see you next time. Bye, Crafty Friend.